Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of TMI Advice You Didn't Want. We're going to be talking again about the Schumann Resonance because, let's be honest, the month of July, the Schumann Resonance has been doing some crazy, weird stuff. But we're going to be talking about a lot of people are saying how the earth is going through its own changes right now because it's up leveling, it's healing, it's doing it what it needs to do. And a lot of that is seen through all of the natural disasters that we're having and all the things that's going on. So we're going to chat a little bit about that today. So in case we haven't met, my name is Karen.
And my name is Ashley, and I've never looked into this, but I know that the Schumann resonance is about the Earth's magnetic field.
Yes.
And so, do they talk about how it interacts with weather? Like,
Yes, actually, I haven't gone a huge deep dive into that, but the Schumann resonance can change with weather. It can change with how we raise our vibrations. The Earth's energy is constantly it's constantly like right now it's constantly changing, let's just say that, but it generally is at a certain level, and right now it is changing. But when there are things like natural disasters, you can actually see that energetic field change in that specific area. So like I know there's an Italian graft that I've seen people talk about, like that's more for like Europe and what's going on there. But yes. Hmm.
and so is it more like which one is the cause and which one is the effect? Like in the sense that like the moon will cause like the tide to go in and out, right? So with the Schumann resonance, have they talked about is the Schumann resonance responding to the natural disasters or the natural disasters responding to the Schumann resonance?
This kind of a chicken or egg
Yeah.
question, and I would have to do more research on it to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
But I do know. So I have done walking meditations with thousands of
Mhm.
people before in hopes to raise the energy of the planet. Every time we've done that, the Schumann resonance spikes.
Yeah.
So that tells me that there's something that we as a collective are doing that's changing the energetic field of the earth.
Yeah.
So is the Schumann resonance happening because of in this instance, like weather, or is the weather causing the Schumann resonance? I don't have an answer. I would have to spend more time looking at
Mhm.
that. But I can tell you that like if you have like peace protest isn't really the word, but peace things, then you can actually see the Schumann resonance do things when there's a group of collective observers that are really raising their energy and raising their frequency, just like when we've done walking meditations for the earth,
Mhm.
and the Schumann resonance is actually spiking as a result. So that's my best
Well,
answer right now.
yeah, and that would be an interesting thing to follow and track more. Like obviously, like we've talked a little bit about tracking before about like astrology or like how you feel. Like there's so many things. Like obviously like Joe Dispenza is tracking like the Schumann resonance with meditations to see what's working and what's happening and all that kind of stuff. So that's really interesting. But that's also kind of in alignment to the earth healing. Like a lot of people are saying
Mm-hmm.
these are the end times and all that kind of stuff. And I personally believe that the earth is like it's kind of like this karmic thing.
Yeah.
Like humans are destroying her, so she's kind of destroying our stuff back and going through this like natural healing and purging.
Purge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know where I live in British Columbia, we have like fires like crazy. And I don't know, like people are saying there's more natural disasters than ever before, but like is that just we're hearing about them more on social media?
Yeah.
Like because there was those Australian fires a while ago. California has been burning for I don't even know how many years. Like because as a
Yeah.
Canadian, we never really heard much about it. I never heard much about it until I had friends that lived there. But like, was that something that was happening before or not? I don't know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that some things are just because we're more connected than we've ever been as a result of things like social media, TV, media, all these things, that we're hearing about it more,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if it's more per se.
Yeah.
I actually would say that there is a possibility that it is more right now, but that there is like purging that's happening as well. But at the same time, people were always like, I remember people screaming,
Oh
maybe
yeah.
like 10 years ago, whenever we had some hurricanes come through Florida, oh my God, it's the worst that it's ever been. And really, that's not true, because there was one year where it was like three hurricanes back to back. But like a couple of years later, that's when they were screaming, oh, now it's the worst ever. And it's like, yeah, well, what about then? Like, it was pretty bad then, too. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Well, I think as humans, we're also very trained to be like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. And that's one
Absolutely.
of the things I hate most about like Western medicine is like you'll hear doctors be like, oh, you have the worst case of this ever. You really need this surgery. Oh, you have the worst of this ever. You really need this medication. And it's just like, okay, take it
Yeah.
with a grain of salt. Like I've heard so many people say the same condition was the worst ever. But anyways, that's just a little personal vent of mine. But yeah, like you had like Hurricane Katrina and that kind of stuff. Like I haven't heard of a more popularized hurricane personally. Like we don't get hurricanes here that I'm aware of with where I live. Um, but like the one that I know, like the only one I know of is Hurricane Katrina. And that was like probably a decade ago. So,
I don't remember anymore, but I know that one hit Louisiana. I wasn't living in Florida when
mhm.
that hit either. So
Yeah,
that I've lived in Florida now for 15 years. So it was before then, I believe.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I'd have to I don't remember. Time is time. So, whatever.
yeah.
But I will
So,
tell you, like, I remember having this conversation. Like, this conversation alone brings up times where I was in things like Bible study. And this was when I was a Christian. So, this was 10 years ago, right? When I was in Bible study. And I remember back then everybody screaming, "This is the end times. The worst is here, and it's here now." And now they're still doing it. But
yeah.
then you also, like, you look at ages past, and they did that then also. This
Mhm.
is the worst it's ever been. The end times are here. We're all dying. You better believe in Jesus, or you're going to hell forever. And it's like, okay, but when's that gonna happen? Like, you've been saying this for eons, but things aren't really changing. So what's going on?
Well, and that's the whole thing too with like whatever reason you're giving it, like the earth is purging or it's the end times. There's also the conspiracy theorists that this is theories that this is like HARP. And so like there's the chemtrails and there's natural disasters happening because Bill Gates is behind it trying to depopulize the world and all that kind of stuff. So there's so many interesting things. But I definitely feel like there is something to be said about the earth feels like, and there is this need to change, for systems to change, and the
Mhm.
earth is calling us to that. Whether it's doing that through natural disasters or not, I don't know. But
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that we can control is ourselves,
mhm.
right? So, like, the way that we change culture is we change ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, culture changes by us going, wait a minute, I am feeling XYZ and that is not serving me.
Mhm.
When you start to change, people take notice, and they will tell you immediately, whether it's a good change or a bad change, they will tell you immediately, okay, what's going on with you? Something's different.
Mhm.
Especially if you are creating a positive change, they will start to really want to know, like, what did you do differently? And when you start to show them instead of say what you did differently, they can sometimes take notice and as a result start to do things similarly to you because they like what you're doing. They like what you're about. I think that's honestly why we started this podcast, because at the end of the day, we just want to share our experiences and share how we're growing and what we're learning, because we know that when we share those things, other people that are like-minded, that are like, wait, I want to up level my energy as well, will kind of get on that bandwagon with us and go, yeah, let's focus on ourselves, because when we focus on changing ourselves, we change the rest of the world. So at the end of the day, we could sit here and we could be so worried as we're watching the news about what's going on with these natural disasters. And there's so much going on with the Schumann resonance and astrology. And oh my God, we could get scared, and that's a low level emotion. Or we could go, you know what? The earth is just letting go some things, and we are upgrading and up leveling. Yeah. And that's a way better way to look at it than to go, oh shit, we're all going to die. Which is what a lot of people want to do.
Well, and it's interesting because like when with Christians saying it, like they should be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right? It blows my mind because oh God, I'm going to go there. The amount of brainwashing that happens, you don't even realize how much brainwashing happens. And when you start talking about things like end times, it becomes something that's scary instead of, oh, wow, Jesus is actually coming back. Now it becomes like, oh my God, either I need to save everybody, or it's really, that's what it comes down. I need to save everybody. We don't need your saving. We don't need to be saved by you. We are here to save ourselves, and that's okay. And it's beautiful. I love that you have such a big heart. That's what I would love to say to Christians. I love that you have such a big heart, but I want you to take that big heart and put it back on yourself, because that is what changes the culture at the end of the day. And a lot of times, this is the thing that bothered me about Christians, is that they were so focused on what was going on outside of them and not focused enough on what was going on inside of them.
Yeah.
That, and I speak from experience. I'm not sitting here trying to point anybody out and say they're the worst. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we all need to take responsibility for what we're thinking and feeling, and actually do something about us, and not focus so much on what's going on in another person, in another situation, in another what, because it doesn't matter. I remember my brother is still very much a Christian, and he actually got this. He actually was saying this to my father as I'm sitting there just listening, not adding to the conversation at all, because I want nothing to do with this conversation. But he was sitting there saying, if somebody is not a Christian, and he's like, I just figured this out. If somebody's not a Christian, that's none of my business. It does not matter. It's okay that they want to live a certain way. It's okay that they want to do what they want to do. That wasn't something that I fully understood as a Christian. Now that I'm on the outside, I can be like, oh yeah, it really doesn't matter. I'm allowed to create what I want to create at the end of the day. Just like he's allowed, and I can see this now, he is allowed to create what he wants to create as a Christian. And I love that for him. I just don't want it pushed on me. I just don't want somebody to say, oh, you're going to hell if you don't do this. Mm-hmm. And do you know that? Do you really know that? Like, at the end of the day, we create heaven or hell by how we think and feel right now. Right now is the only thing that matters. Present moment is the only thing that matters. Not what happens 10 years from now, not what happened last year, now. And that is one of the things that I didn't get as a Christian. And now I know, and I'm like, oh shit, I missed that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh boy, it just disappeared on me. Oh boy. But your family doesn't know your viewpoint right now, correct?
Yeah, the only one that knows is my sister-in-law, because I was like, she can handle it. My parents, I don't think they'll ever need to know, because for me, why do they need to know? My brother will probably know eventually. On some level, I think they all know. They just don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Although my mom is very verbally blatant about, oh, you guys are still Christians, you just don't go to church. Like that. She said that to us before, as my husband and I just look at each other and smirk, and we're like, well, she doesn't know, but that's okay. Like, I really am not worried about it as far as that, because I don't want somebody to sit there and worry about, oh my God, my daughter's not going to heaven. Oh my God, my sister's not going to heaven because of your viewpoint. Like, I don't feel like that's really going to add to their life. And so that's how come I've never really broached that subject, nor have I felt like I just needed to. With my sister-in-law, I don't remember how come it came up, but we were talking about something and I was like, listen, just so you know, I don't believe that anymore. And she
Yeah.
was like, what? And I was like, well, let me just tell you where I am now. And she was just kind of like, well, that's a lot of information. And I was like, can you let this be something that if I decide to tell my brother or my parents, that be something that I share with them? And she said, yes, that's totally fine. And
Mhm.
after that conversation, I've just never felt the need to share with the rest of my family. Now, I do believe, truly do believe that my brother will either be told by me or figure it out someday. But I don't really need, I don't, never felt the need to push that.
Yeah. And they don't care about you not going to church.
My parents don't even go to church. They haven't gone to church in, it started when I was a teenager. They would church hop every once in a while, and then they would be like, this isn't really what we want to do. So my parents haven't gone to church in years,
Interesting.
but my dad will still read the Bible.
Mhm.
And that's really the extent of their Christianity at this point. My mom doesn't really do anything um, except for in name alone. Like, she grew up Lutheran. They are very traditional.
Yeah.
So just very in name alone, I'm a Christian. But
Hmm.
that's that. But I did grow up. It was very different growing up. It was like, no, we go to church every Sunday. No, you are going to this Christian school. Like, you have to wear this when you go. Like, it was very structured as a child. But as I became a teenager, like late teenager, is when things started to kind of change a little bit. I think my parents, I know, had some things happen to them in the church. And so they were kind of disillusioned by it. And they were kind of like, I think it's time to walk away from that at least. I think really what it comes down to is the whole saying, I like your Christ, I don't like your Christians. I think that's what it came down to for my parents.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. A little random topic.
very random.
I have a friend that really struggles because her family all knows and they are very judgmental and very much like you need to come back
Yeah.
to
Yeah, and I did hear some of that from my sister-in-law, but since that initial conversation, there's been a few times that it's like, well, you probably should. But I think some of it too, there's a belief in some Christian circles, which I have been a part of, is that once you're saved, you're always saved. So I think that is what's carrying her. And at the end of the day, I do think that she kind of got what my brother got as well, where if you're not a Christian, it's none of my business. That's
Mhm.
not for me to do for you. So, but yeah, it's just, it's interesting because I don't think that I would ever get, um, by my immediate family, I would get the whole, oh, you need to be a Christian again and try to get me back. Um, but I don't necessarily think that the conversation's necessary.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, back to the earth.
Wow, that was a very far tangent.
When it comes to the world ending, it's well, any kind of natural disasters, it's so heavily religious. Like so
Absolutely.
because you're praying for people that are um sorry, you're praying for all the people that are affected by the natural disaster, and you're praying, and everyone's talking about that, and it brings up people passing away, so that then that is also religion. And then the natural disasters always bring up the end times conversation. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's really interesting, though, just. I don't know, even just my daughter, like we live in the mountains and we'll drive through the mountains and she'll see areas where they've blown away the mountain for roads or gravel pits or whatever. And she's just like, I just feel so sad that we've done this to our earth. And she actually made a comment which was kind of amusing back a couple months ago. She's like, I bet you if you looked at the world from space nowadays, it would just be gray.
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, no, I don't think it would be, but I understand because like in her like empathic heart, it was like the whole world is just roads and buildings now
Mm,
and overpopulated, but she feels so much for animals and like Earth in general. So like she very much like she's a vegetarian and like it hurts her to see anything suffer in any way, shape, or form. So
mm,
yeah, and it's interesting because for me, as a vegetarian as well, I struggle with it a lot because I understand there is like a natural like um lions eat like deer, like that kind of thing. And um so there is that natural progression, or like we've been looking at orca whales to go whale watching and they eat seals and they're vicious. Like it's
mhm.
awful. And I'm like, to me, it doesn't make sense to have that kind of death and that kind of food chain. And it's weird how I get empathetic like that and get like obviously the world is that way. So yeah, it feels detached a little bit.
I think so. I love what Native Americans would
Mm,
do when they would kill to eat. They would always bless it as they were killing it. And you can even watch shows like Avatar, and that is a part of their culture that as they're killing this thing that is meant to sustain their life, they're literally blessing this thing and thanking it for what it's giving to you, right? So I think that what happened is that we bastardized a lot of how we, first of all, take care of animals and then how we eat as well. Because you look at like what they do to cows and chickens on some of these big farms, that to me is not what I want to ever get behind, because that they're hurting those animals. There's no love towards it when you look at how, say, in Avatar they're killing this animal. There's love towards that animal for thank you for sustaining me as well, right? So I think that what happened is that we lost that along the way in Western culture. We just completely lost that. And I think bringing that back, there could be so much healing that could happen for us as humans as well as for animals, because they
yeah.
know what's going on. I was listening to the telepathy tapes I've talked about on this podcast before, but they have an offshoot of the telepathy tapes, um, the talk tracks, right? So it's an offshoot of that podcast where basically they are talking about anybody that's nonverbal now. Because in the telepathy tapes, they were focusing on autistic kids that were not verbal, but in the talk tracks, they're focusing on any any animal or person or thing that's nonverbal, right? So it could even be like my table, right? Talking about those things that are nonverbal. So one of those episodes included a lady that actually telepathically speaks with animals, and some of the things that she said were so freaking beautiful. But one of the things that really got me, there was a couple things she said, but the story that I'm going to share, this really got me. She said that she was at this it was some sort of museum in Africa where they were basically, they had a garden outside this museum that they would sustain the museum and feed people inside the museum with whatever was in the garden. And at one point, they had monkeys or orangutans or apes or something that were coming in and they were stealing the food from the garden.
Mhm.
And so this museum brought in this lady that spoke with animals so that she could speak with these apes and be like, hey, what are you doing? Like, can you leave that food alone? It's for the museum.
Yeah.
And the thing that was interesting is that their response was, you don't need that food. And she was like, no, we do need that for food. That's for the museum. And the ape responded back, well, I see how much you waste. I need this food because you're wasting it. Like, you're not eating it. And then also, why the fuck do you do what you do to food? Like, you're bastardizing it by doing, like, basically cooking. He didn't have the word for cooking, but he was like, why would you do that to your food? That just was completely foreign for an ape because they're going to pick and take what they need and they're not going to cook it, right? And so all of this conversation she's having with this ape, and it just was interesting because we assume that because somebody or something doesn't speak, it doesn't have thoughts of its own. It doesn't have feelings of its own. And I think that that is one of the biggest crying shames that that podcast is putting light on. So, for example, like autistic people, a
Yep.
lot of people think that they're stupid because they can't speak or because they don't have control over their body vessel. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Some of them are so brilliant. And you hear of people that are like these child prodigies that are brilliant, but on some level they have autism. And
Mhm.
it's like there's some correlation with that, right? So it's interesting that we assume that because something or someone either doesn't speak or is different from us, that they're not smart or that they don't have thoughts and feelings of their own. And I think that is the crying shame that I think, like, if we can really, as a human race, realize that there are entities uh, other than the human race that have thoughts and feelings, that have things that they want to share too. And I think that we need to realize that.
Mhm. Well, and that's like the thing too. People are like, oh, we eat animals because they like we eat cows because they don't have the same companionship as dogs. But then you look at these like vegan farms and these cows are just as companion
Mm-hmm.
like in the same ways, playful companions as dogs. Just like if there's a whole bunch of wild dogs, they're not going to be companion animals at all. And so animals like in the animals will rise to the occasion, right?
Yeah.
And then people used to say, well, like fish, they have no feelings, they have no brains. And there's fish that will show companionship even.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's right to me. I'm like, I don't want to eat something that has those thoughts and those feelings at all. But my half of my family does, and my dogs need meat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I struggle with this because I would love for no one to have to eat meat, but like cats literally can't sustain themselves without eating meat. And so there is something in our nature where there is that cycle of life, and for me it's really hard to get behind. So I do fish and I do have birds that we eat for meat. Obviously, I don't, but my family does because like you said, I would rather raise them and I spoil them and give them all the good things and know that they had a good life and they're killed humanely and everything's good instead of them being abused and brutalized and have this hu horrible life. And that's where I'm a lot more on board with me raising meat or hunting than buying from a store because you don't know what it was like. But as you said, like we've got to this place where like animals are just things and they can be
Mm-hmm.
treated however they want, or however we want because they don't matter. And we are very much like that with anything really in our life, whether it's humans or animals or just material possessions. But then also, there's animals that kill just to kill
Mm-hmm.
and that kill brutally and all
100%.
that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's just this weird concept to me because it just, there's something about it that doesn't feel right and it doesn't click. But obviously, that's the world that we're in right now. Like,
Yeah, that's
cats
fair.
only eat meat.
So one thing I want to say too, one thing that I think this really comes back to the fact that I have seen death and been a part of death because I work in the hospital, right? So, but I don't see death. It's not the end. It's just a transformation, right? So, I think that some of it for me is what it comes down to, because you can't lose that energy. It's
Mhm.
not gone. It's just transformed into something else.
Yeah,
Um, and so you look at, like, so many of us humans are so fearful of death, and I think that that's a sad thing, because I think really at the end of the day, death should be a celebration, because you got to be a part of this 3D reality and create in the way that you did. And now you get to transform into something else
Mhm.
that can create differently. And I think that that goes for animals as well. Because I mean, I think that some of it has to do with, like, we just have such a negative view of death. And I don't think that that's necessary. I think what like I said, with how the Native Americans would eat their food, that to me makes way more sense, because it was like, okay, you're passing on so that I can live,
Yeah,
right? Like, because if I didn't eat you, like back then, that was the option. You eat this or you don't eat, right? So now things are definitely different. But I think at the end of the day, that is probably what I miss the most from my Christian upbringing, is that I spent more time praying before I eat. And I won't say that I don't have gratitude before I eat. I think that I do, but I think that I do less of it because it's less of a tradition that put in place. And
yeah,
that's something I've thought about a lot, probably within the past year, that that really needs to be something that I continue to do, because there's something about feeling grateful for this thing that is continuing your 3D reality experience.
for sure. Yeah.
So,
No, and I agree. And that's where too, when we butchered our birds a month ago, the boys all participated because they all eat meat. And so I wanted them all to be a part of it and learn the process of it, because that's their life. My daughter, who doesn't eat meat, I'm like, no,
she
you're
doesn't
good.
need to. Yeah, if she
Yeah.
doesn't want that.
But
Yeah.
we all thank them for their life and contributing to our life, and um we basically consumed the entire bird because
Mhm.
my dogs ate even the head and the
Yeah.
feet.
Yep.
So, yeah, they ate everything. The only thing that didn't get eaten was the bones that were cooked in the birds that the boys ate. But yeah, everything was eaten.
Yeah. I think, like, what this whole conversation just means is that we need to have more love for this 3D earth that we have created. Like, we need to have more love for it than what we have been. And that includes not only the people that we come in contact with, but also the animals, the actual earth,
Yeah,
being in connection with it, meaning going outside barefoot and spending time in the earth. I think that that's something that is a lost art. I actually said this on our TikTok, because some people were saying, what do I do to feel better?
yeah,
And how do I get better with all the craziness that's happening with this Schumann resonance? And I'm like, put your feet in the earth, because that's going to ground you faster than just about anything, because you're going to sync with the energetic field of the earth when you do that. And
yeah.
then I had a lot of pushback from people where they were like, oh, but it's so fucking hot right now. I don't want to go outside.
Oh,
Or another person was like, it snows like 9 months out of the year. I'm not going to go do that. And I'm like, okay, you can say no, but you can still do those things no matter if it's fucking freezing or fucking hot, right? And there's snow on the ground. You can still put your feet on the ground and still get connected to Mother Earth, even if there's snow there.
yeah.
So it really comes down to, what are the excuses that we are making as a human race to either not take care of ourselves and take care of this earth that we've been given. So
Yeah. Well, and it's scientifically proven, like touching dirt
Mhm.
is like an antidepressant.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I have really bad sore feet, and because I broke my neck, my back and my neck, but because I broke my back, I'll get soreness in my back for just from standing a long time. And we had soccer back in the spring where the boys were in soccer 5 times a week for like hours. And I intentionally, unless it was raining, wore sandals so I could take my sandals off and just stand in the grass the entire time with my bare feet. Sometimes sat down with my feet in the grass, but my feet were always planted in the grass. And I noticed I significantly could stand longer, like in my house cooking and everything. And I noticed a significant change in my body. And that was it. I just
Mhm.
stood at soccer in the grass.
Yeah.
And so it works. And that's the thing. I think so often in life, the fixes are so simple,
Hmm.
but it's almost like they're too simple, you know? Like,
Hmm.
why would I do that? That's too easy. Like, and so we don't prioritize it because it's not this grand, huge thing. So,
Or it seems too woo woo is the other thing. It's like
yeah.
at this point, standing in the grass is not actually woo woo. It's been scientifically proven that it is better for you, right? So I think what it comes down to is what are the excuses we're making too. So
Definitely.
sad but true. So, but with that, I guess we can call this one a wrap for today. So, if you're listening on your favorite podcast host, go ahead, give us a 5 star. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. And if you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let us know in the comments again what your thoughts are. So, with that, we're going to call TMI Advice You Didn't Want a wrap for today. Thanks so much for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue hanging out with us, and don't forget to subscribe.